how to keep them happy. So the reason I know something about this is because I worked as a radioactive materials inspector for the state. I'm not going to tell you which state, just for fun. Um, Here's how we're going to talk through this. We're going to talk about inspections. We're going to talk about the inspector mindset, and then a couple other things, including some concepts here called the loose thread, the broken window theory, and then some best practices and pro tips. Okay, there's my nice inspector looking for clues. Okay, first and foremost, inspectors are not the bad guy, right? Okay, they're not there to ruin your life. They're not there to try and be cruel, to be mean. They are there doing their part to ensure patient safety. It can be hard to remember that when it's really stressful and they're grilling you on things. But really, the stress comes from if your site isn't prepared. The intensity can also vary widely depending on your inspector. Hopefully, you have a decent relationship with them. It's always good to kind of know your inspector and be friendly with them. But it is good to remember the stress mostly comes from a lack of preparation. It doesn't necessarily need to come from the inspection itself, because at the end of the day, they are wanting the same thing we are, which is patient safety. Okay, now this is the inspector mindset. Again, one of my first jobs was as a radioactive materials inspector doing nuke med inspections, and this is how they partially train you. There's a reason that we're here as inspectors. The work is mysterious and important. Some of you may recognize that from a TV show on Apple Television recently. Inspectors are trained to pull the thread. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. Here's a big one to remember. If it's not documented, it didn't happen, right? How can it have happened if it's not documented? Someone saying it happened means next to nothing. We need documentation that it occurred. So basically, that's why it's so important not to lose pages of documentation, which is why binders and paper and pen can really get you into trouble if a page gets ripped out, something like that. And then inspectors are trained to look for the root cause. Was this just a simple accident? Was it human error? Or is this error indicative of some programmatic failures? Obviously, programmatic being the larger issue. Inspectors know that humans make mistakes. They can absolutely take that into account if it's just a one-time thing. But if they see a mistake, it's going to make them kind of look into it more and kind of inspect for programmatic issues. Okay, the loose thread. Inspectors are taught to pull the thread, which hopefully is a little bit self-explanatory, but it's basically if they see something curious, be curious and chase it all the way down. Something that seems a little bit off, something that seems confusing, or a value that looks weird, follow it down, all the way down, find the root cause. So anytime there's a loose thread, that inspector is going to grab it and just start to pull and see if things unravel, see if there's anything weird going on there. Okay, the broken window theory. I like this one a lot just in general. But basically, you may have heard about this, you may have not. It's if you picture like an abandoned house or an abandoned building, maybe in a abandoned area of town. If all the windows are there and intact, people walking by, they don't notice it, they're not going to do anything. As soon as one window gets broken, well, that gives unconscious permission to anyone who wants to break the rest of the windows. So basically, it's that one small thing, one small error can lead to so much more, just because of the way human nature works. I really like this theory for a lot of things, but basically for inspectors, this could mean if they see an error, if they see something wrong, well, now they're on higher alert. They're not necessarily going to shut your program down because someone forgot QC one day, but they're now going to look into that and see why it happened, get a good reason behind it, and see if it's occurring more often and indicative of something larger. So basically, the little things matter. Keep an eye on little things getting missed and see why that happened. For employees, you could use the broken window theory to, let's say, if I'm a nuke med tech and I'm starting to cut corners because I'm in a rush, and nobody calls me on it and nothing happens, if management doesn't chat with me or ask about it, well, maybe I start to cut more corners. If I feel that a task is kind of silly or unimportant or not worth my time, maybe I start to skip that task. This can compound, right? So especially employees who may have been there for a really long time, or if like you got a jaded employee, which honestly understandable. Healthcare is tough. Everyone is stressed. Everyone's understaffed. But this is why overseeing your own program is really important to running a good program. You don't want the inspector to catch the issues. You want management to be the one catching their own issues. Okay, best practices to get ready for inspections. Again, just preparation, just even thinking about it at all. Oops, let's go back. That is the biggest one. Making sure that all your staff are trained and aware, and not freaking out when the inspector shows up, because it really does not need to be a big deal. Making sure that records are easily available to every employee so that all employees know exactly where the records are kept, how to access them, where to find them. Because I just guarantee you, if there's one or two employees who maybe don't have as much training on it, it's going to be them there alone when the inspector shows up. It just always works out that way. So you want every single employee to know exactly what they're doing here. Hold mock inspections. This is a really good one. You could do it yearly. It doesn't even have to be a whole big thing, but um, show up, pretend you're an inspector, start asking questions that they might ask, and make sure your staff is ready and prepped to answer those questions. You can train your staff to answer inspectors' questions politely and directly. Again, there is no need to be confrontational with inspectors. You just want to keep them happy. You can have a relationship with them, like a friend relationship. You can be friendly with them. They're people too, just doing their job, trying to keep patients safe. But a big caveat there: your employees don't need to volunteer additional information. They don't need to be, completely tight-lipped and not answering things, but just have them answer the inspector's question succinctly and directly. The best inspectors are really good at just listening and kind of standing there and letting people talk themselves into a hole, or maybe revealing something that they didn't necessarily want to reveal. Or if they get nervous, maybe they just start, chatting, and they can shoot themselves in the foot, even if there's nothing actually that wrong. That nervousness can really just compound and lead to interesting results. So, moral of the story here: answer the inspector's questions. You don't have to, volunteer further information. Just answer exactly what they asked. A couple of pro tips. Again, the adequate preparation can completely eliminate nerves. All you need to do is make sure that your employees feel confident about what they're doing. And that makes the inspection quick and efficient. It doesn't need to be dragged out. Now, as soon as errors start happening, as soon as an employee can't find records, well, then it starts to get longer and longer. And then they start to dig in more and more, that loose thread theory, that broken window theory. Again, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. That's why documentation is so incredibly important. Okay, a big one, and this can be tempting, but don't ever falsify records, ever, ever. Even if just some little thing got missed, that's fine. Just report it. Report and document any errors or missed QC. So, QC got missed this day. Great. Just mark that in the record. QC got missed. This was discovered by the manager 3 days later, a week later. And oftentimes, almost 100% of the time, the inspector is going to give you credit for being the one to find it, because that shows that you have a great, strong program. It shows that you have oversight of your own program to find mistakes. So it's almost better than if there's no mistakes. If you find one little mistake, well, great. I found that. I reported it quickly. I have it documented about why it happened. Perfect. So if staff, if a manager, if the employee found the issue, great, especially if they found it quickly within a week or a month. If the inspector is the first person to notice the issue, that's bad, because not only was there an issue, but there was no oversight to catch it. So that's kind of a dual problem there, again, that can compound.